joining us for another episode of Five Idiots Talking Toys. And a special thank you for tuning in to part 2 of The Toy Father, Mr. Jim Swearingen. Please remember to like and subscribe. Thanks.
You know, I got to kick it off, but I didn't stay with it very long. I only worked on Star Wars for the first 2 movies. And due to
why was that?
Due to management change, Dave Okada left. He and Vernon Loomis left Kenner and went off to form marketing and design services for the General Mills Fun Group. So he left, and they decided to move somebody into his position, and he hired a guy I couldn't work with, and I decided that I needed to change, and I started looking around, and when people in marketing found out I was looking around and that I had talked to Mattel, they decided that maybe they wanted to keep me around, so they offered me a job in product management. So I went into marketing. I went into the dark side. So I went into marketing in 1980. I took over Strawberry Shortcake.
Jim, I was telling my wife earlier today at lunch that I remembered you saying after you worked on Star Wars, you went to Strawberry Shortcake, and she got all perked up and excited. And she said, "Oh, you have to tell him I had the strawberry case that you open up with all the figures in it, and it smelled like strawberry." She was very excited, but it was interesting, just the concept that working in that field, you can be a part of things. You can be touching things that are a part of every kid's life, girls, boys, all different interests. So it was funny to see her perk up when I said that.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I had Strawberry Shortcake and I go, way back. I became very fluent in berry talk. I wrote a lot of copy with the word berry in it. When I go downtown to see have you all been to Cincinnati?
No. It's been a while since I've been to Cincinnati. Yeah.
If you come to Cincinnati, you've probably seen the mural.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So if you come to town, I touched about easily 75% of those product lines.
Wow.
So
yeah, that's awesome.
I had lots of great experience. So, it's from Sit and Spin and Spirograph to Star Wars, and and there's a lot of Star Wars up there. It's pretty, there's a Boba Fett and X-Wing fighter and stuff. So the toy business, the good thing about, one of the things that attracted me to the toy business, because it's kind of like, well, you're an industrial designer. Do you want to work on toasters or, stereo equipment or something? The toy business changed all the time. So, one year you're working on Star Wars, and the next season you're working on Strawberry Shortcake. So it was like 50% of every toy line changes every year. So you're always looking for new ideas and stuff. Although maybe not as much these days, because you're rehashing a lot of stuff. But that was what really attracted me. Is that, yeah, I could do a lot of other industrial designy things, cars and stuff. I one of my co-op sections was with General Motors. I worked in the car interior group there for the summer, but it's not nearly as exciting because, how many times can you change a taillight or, so the toy business is really radically new every year. There used to be. It's a little hard to tell now, but because Kenner went through so many, it's Batman and Ghostbusters and all that stuff. Lots of stuff changed all the time. There's always, in order to get salespeople or buyers into the showroom, you had to have something new to show them. So it was always really exciting.
Nowadays, all we see is remakes of pretty much everything. He-Man, Batman, Scooby-Doo, Star Wars, everything. Everything's just a remake nowadays. There's nothing original. I don't see hardly any figures from any TV shows or movies that are out right now.
No. Well, that's because there's so few people to sell to. I mean, there are no toy, you look at when you're only dealing with Target, Amazon, and Walmart, you really don't have very many. I mean, Walmart says, I'll take that and that, but I'm not taking that third thing. You're not going to show them much. So now I was involved just recently, a couple of years ago, trying to help a Chinese manufacturer break into the toy business in America. They wanted to do their own toy line in America. So my business partner, ex-business partner, Tom, and Dave Maurer, who was president of Kenner at one point, we got together and tried to help them break into the market. And it is just incredible. It's like the business has just completely changed. So, and I think kids are suffering from it because there's not much fun out there. There's some doll stuff that's kind of cute and funny, but no one today would come up something as big as Baby Alive now. That just doesn't happen. It's really tough, and little toy companies come and go really quickly. Like ours, we put together this thing called Hooray Toys. We had a big toy line that we'd put together. It was pretty interesting. They were doing a movie, they had funded a movie and all that stuff. So we had a lot of stuff that we could have done with it, but it fizzled really quickly. So it's not. I wouldn't want to be starting up a toy company right now.
Yeah. Do you think that technology and stuff like that has a lot to do with the interest in play?
Oh yeah. I mean, kids are on their tablets.
Yeah.
Or to figure out a way to go from a tablet to a toy. You can go on your, and it's probably coming. Go on your computer and design your favorite character, and then you'd be able to 3D print it, and it's just around the corner. Yeah. Because people are, and you can do 3D printing in multiple colors. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, we were just fortunate enough, the group of the five of us, being all invested in the same hobby. We were just fortunate enough to grow up in the golden age of toys. I think, like you've spoken about many times, the toy industry really changed going into the late 70s and 80s, and we all have younger kids, and with the screens and the tablets and everything, the internet and everything that they can be distracted by, it's really hard to get them to sit down and play with toys. I have a 4 and a 6-year-old. They have a full set of all the Star Wars toys. They have vehicles and stuff, and they do play with them, but they don't have a lot of invested interest in the current modern toys the way that we did. We didn't have a lot of divided attention. We would sit for hours and hours and play with these toys.
Yeah. Well, it's just, that's the way things are going. So I don't know. Because trying to think the first video game thing that we had, Pong or something. But yeah, I think it's just a matter of time that, you'll probably have to invest in a 3D printer.
That's a really good point that you just brought up. And I hadn't really considered that, because around the time when Star Wars toys started to dip, and I know that you had moved on already, but around that 85, 86 period, I'm remembering back, that's when I got my first Nintendo, and that was my first video game system. So that might have been a big shift in the toy industry too, is a lot of kids sitting there in front of a TV with, being occupied for hours on end, as opposed to, having to physically play with toys. That's an interesting thought. That was the beginning of the end.
The 1995 Kenner Star Wars toys that were, I don't know what you think about those, Jim, but those are disappointing to a lot of us, I think.
I'm trying to think, what's 95? Is that the
Power Force?
Power of the Force 2
Incredible
with,
Hulk meets Star Wars.
Yeah.
exactly.
Who is it? Somebody just recently. Oh, I know. It was one of the collectors, FJ. He had on Facebook, he had a picture of his, because it was Mark Hamill's birthday. He had his original, he has a New Hope one, and he's got the 95 Powers of the Force, and they're both signed by Mark Hamill. And I said something about those are the weirdest figures. And he said, yeah, when I had them signed, because he had them signed at the same time, Mark Hamill picked up the Power of the Force one and said something, I can't remember exactly what it was, but so he's at a signing and he's like, holds us up and he's like, look at it. It was just like putting that Power of the Force thing down. It just was funny to read that, even Mark Hamill didn't like seeing himself that way.
Well, getting them signed by Mark Hamill, I think, is the only way to have any value at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe so. That I guess at the time it seemed like a good idea.
Jim, I do have an oddball question for you that I had thought of earlier. You worked on developing the Death Star playset and creating that, and I've heard you speak about that before. One question I had for you was the trash monster, which somehow is called Dianaga. Was that part of that? And my fascination with that is, as a kid watching that movie over and over again, and that eyeball pops out of the water, I always just imagined it being some kind of a snake creature, or it had a tentacle, or it was using its tail. How did it turn into that Loch Ness monster looking figure? Were you part of that? Do you remember?
Well, I don't remember if I turned over a monster with it. I know who designed that monster.
Okay.
I can tell you who it was.
All right.
It was my it was my former business partner who was working in production design. It was Tim Effler. So he designed the monster that was in the playset. So
I wonder if he was working off of a production design or
no,
anything.
all they had was the picture and the eyeball. So it was like from there down, it was really up to the people at Kenner.
Oh, see, that's what I wanted to know. That's what I found so fascinating, that somebody just created that. Yeah.
And I don't, hard to tell. It was somewhere in the process, it would have been passed by Lucasfilm marketing, and it's hard to tell whether they actually, had somebody. I'd be hard pressed to tell you whether Lucas actually saw it or not. And they never, as far as I know, none of the people at Lucasfilm had actually designed the creature. I mean, if there were drawings or something, but I don't think that existed. So, but it was Tim. It was his fault.
I bet that's happened. I bet that happens in the toy industry a bunch. And I can think of another example with Star Wars later on with Return of the Jedi. I've read articles about this. The Max Rebo guy, the blue guy who would play the piano in Jabba's palace, was really supposed to be like this stumpy, short thing with no legs. And from the photos that they created the toy from years later, they couldn't tell that it wasn't sitting inside the piano. It was sitting on top, and it was half the size. And they created a toy that, had hips and legs and feet. And it's just a very interesting story that they had to create a toy out of whatever they could imagine the photo was.
It worked.
It worked, yeah.
Simon Williamson is very happy to have a figure. The guy that was the puppeteer. Those guys are really interesting. I've met a bunch of the puppeteers, the people that did Jabba the Hutt and all that stuff. There were 5 guys inside Jabba the Hutt, plus some guys outside. It was really fun to meet them.
So what is it like when you go to these cons?
Are you going?
No, I'm sorry.
Are you going to next year's con?
ICC?
Yeah.
Well, if Michael invites me to come back, I'll go back. I'll probably come. It's as I said, I'm trying to put together some panels of my, that I'm not in that business, but there's some people that are like Tom Clark, the marketing guy that was there this year. I introduced him to Michael, and I'm trying to put together a couple others that might be interesting for collectors to talk to, like the sculptors and Tim Simmons is, he's interesting to talk to. There's some other people. We're unfortunately dying off. I did this. If you saw my presentation, I don't know if you noticed when there's a photograph in the presentation that's of the team, the prelim team, and there's, I don't know how many people were actually there, but I turned. I'm doing my talk, and I've done it enough times but I'd added that slide and a couple other ones. So I turned, and I hadn't done a presentation with that slide in there. And when I turned to see what because they didn't have they didn't have a monitor I could see, so I had to look back to see what the photograph was. I turned, and it took a little bit of my breath away when I saw that, because half those people were dead. It was just like, I turned, and it was like, it just, for some reason, it struck me that, all the engineers, one engineer left, all the model makers that did some incredible work early on are all gone. It was just like, whoa, that's just just a breathtaking moment for us. Just a second, it was like, oh yeah. Still have to tell people what's going on here. But what was the question? Sorry, I think I went off on a tangent.
Well, I think we're saying we're putting a call out to Michael Havens, right? We want to have you back next year. He did a great job at the convention last year. We had a great time, and the five of us, that's where we all met in person, and we've been inseparable on a daily conversation basis ever since. So we hope we'll see you back there next year.
Well, it's on my schedule. I don't have very many dates set up this year. For obvious reasons. I'm going to be in Louisiana the 9th of October, and then I don't have anything scheduled, because I was hoping, fingers crossed, I was hoping to go to Cologne, Germany for a Star Wars thing, Power of the Force, I think was the name of it. But they didn't want to, they kind of pulled back and said maybe next year, because they didn't want to buy tickets and all that, and then have COVID shut things down, which is probably what's happening right now. But and then the next thing I have is in Austin, Texas. So if you know anybody near Austin, Texas, I'm going to be at the Shroud. It's called the Shroud Con. It's a group of Mandalorian cosplayers. They're putting together a con in Austin, Texas on the January 20th and 21st. So if you know anybody that in that area.
I think we know a bunch of collectors in Texas and in that area, and I'm sure we have some listeners as well.
Yeah.
Jim, how did you get started with the conventions? How did that come about after years, away from Star Wars in your life? And how did that feel when you started? Was it an odd, unfamiliar setting to walk into? What was that like for you?
My first con was called the Unboxing Toy Convention in Mexico City. The guy that runs it had seen Plastic Galaxy, and he reached out to me and said, would you come to Mexico? So that was the first one. And then I did his show twice in between the Toys That Made Us came out. But they did a great thing with everything. I had an interpreter with me all the time, and they did a great job. But that was the first. And then I got a contact from a group that was doing Indianapolis and Florida. I can't remember, Pensacon. I haven't done a lot of them. I mean, I'm kind of an odd character to come to shows. You know, it's like, you know, I'm not an actor. I'm not a voice actor. I'm a toy designer. So it's kind of
You designed everybody's fantasy Star Wars world, though. That's
and I have an agent now that gets me some conventions. And the best, and then I got invited. I think after Mexico City, I got an invitation to go to a thing called Norse Force in Nuremberg,
Wow.
which is coming up next year. If you want to see it's kind of a smaller version of the celebration, and I think it's in October. It's called Norse Force. I don't know what number it is. There, it's all Star Wars. It's only Star Wars.
So you're a Star Wars fan at heart, even if you're not, you know, a collector per se of you know, memorabilia and things like that. I know you have some stuff, and you should probably have some really cool stuff. But as a Star Wars fan at heart, what was it like to walk into some of these conventions and see fans that are just so passionate and are willing to, you know, dress up or just want to talk nonstop about it? What was that experience like? Was that really kind of, did it make you step back because it just was something so new to you?
Yeah, I go, this is all because of me, which to some extent is. I mean, if Kenner hadn't stepped in, it might have been another Mego line that came and went, and, you know, was gone in 1978. But yeah, well, going in cons, it's just, I mean, it's a real ego rush too. I mean, people, when I walk through Celebration in Chicago, when I walked through there, people would, I did a panel, but that was kind of like spur of the moment where you come and sit on the panel for Gus Lopez's thing. But I walk around and people ask for my autograph or photographs and stuff. It's pretty heady stuff. It's like, because a lot of people saw the Toys That Made Us and recognized me walking around just, you know, looking at toys and stuff. That's how the guys from the Austin show, they were both dressed in their Mandalorian things, and they're both 6-something tall. And I come up to their shoulder. So they asked for my photograph, and I said, sure, I'll take a photograph. So that was in Chicago. And then they said they were thinking about doing a con of their own. And I said, well, let me know. So but yeah, I get a little bit of a rush out of it. It's, you know, because I got a little smarter last Celebration. I had cards. I have a card. Gary Bobridge, do you know him? He's Sharing the Empire. He was one of the authors of Empire. Anyway, he named me the Toy Father. So I have a logo. It's I don't think I have one handy. Anyway, it's the Godfather hand, you know, the one with the strings hanging down. And instead of a dead body, it's an X-Wing fighter. So
That's good.
The Toy Father.
That's great.
So I have a card like that with my picture on it and stuff. And so people ask for my photograph. On the back of it, I printed, it says, I asked them to consider making a donation to hydrocephalus, because that's my charity. So I have a 8-year-old guy that has hydrocephalus and all that stuff. So I read that. So when people ask me for a photograph, instead of saying, well, give me $20 and you're gonna have a picture, I just give them the card and ask them to make a donation. So that's great.
That's really nice.
Yeah, it's really, and when I do my signings and stuff, half that money goes to a charity, either hydrocephalus, or if the event has their own, I usually give money, give half the proceeds to them. In Norse Force, they were raising money for a thing similar to our Ronald McDonald House thing. They were raising money for the Children's Hospital in Nuremberg. So I donated a couple of my prints and half of my signing stuff. And I think I left 2,500 euros back there. So
wow.
That part of it's really, I get it, you know. That's part of the reason I sit there for 8 hours and hours and sign autographs, because paying back to all the kids that suffer from different things. Hydrocephalus just happens to be one I'm closer to than a lot of other things.
Yeah, that's very generous of you. That's amazing that you do that. So, well, we don't want to keep you any longer than we have to, but we could talk to you for hours, honestly. I mean, I don't, So I think, does anyone have any parting questions before we let Mr. Swearingen off the hook?
I don't feel like I'm on the hook.
Okay, good.
I'll just say I just want to personally thank you for coming. I know I spoke with you in person, and I don't know that I know that you don't remember that, but I was happy that I was able to thank you for your contributions in person in April when I met you, and just thanks very much for coming to our show. It's a newer show. This is, I think, our 8th episode or 9th episode. So just thanks so much for spending time with us. You're very generous with your time tonight, and thanks for sharing these great stories and answering our questions. We really appreciate it.
Great. I really do enjoy talking to collectors. I don't get it because I don't collect, but it really is. I mean, what says Prune Productions?
Oh, here we go. You're gonna have to explain that one, Chris.
His favorite figure is Prune Face from Return of the Jedi. No one else's favorite figure in the world except for Christopher.
Yeah,
That's Prune Face.
He was in the background of one scene for half of a second.
He was New Hope. He was the one that saved Princess Leia from the Death Star.
Oh my
False.
In some kind of fan fiction.
He was in Return of the Jedi.
Oh,
a scene that nobody really saw, but they made the figure anyway. We don't really know why.
I got it. That's terrible. I should know those. I did, as I say, I don't.
In the scene where they're planning to attack the Death Star in Return of the Jedi, he's just sitting on a bench in the background. That's it. And he's got a pirate patch. We don't know why. And somebody melted his face. I mean, Christopher has 1,700 of them.
Well, the truth is that for the last 40 years, people thought he was actually like a bad guy. They thought he was a bad figure, and people are starting to realize now that he's actually a good guy.
Well, so he was misunderstood.
Christopher's going to be a millionaire very soon.
Yes.
So we've had about 7 or 8 episodes, and he says this every single episode. And it's not that no one knew about that. No one really cared if he was or he wasn't.
Well, I was going to compliment him on his displays, and instead of his name, it says Prune Productions. So now I don't remember his name.
Well, everything behind him, there's 3 Luke Skywalkers, and every other one is filled with Prune Face. Can't tell.
It's an easier figure. It's like you can. There are people that concentrate on figures. Like now, a guy here in Cincinnati does Admiral Akbar.
Oh, that's a good one.
There are other people that collect. They concentrate on one figure, and that's
Forgetting about Prune Face, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for making the toys, for us kids growing up, because as I said, that's what I remember the most. It's playing with the toys. It's not even the movies. It was the toys. So
that's good for me, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, you're now the other. I've got 2 collectors, and then there's a little tiny thing, a shelf over here on John's. And
that goes around my room.
Rancor monster above.
He's eating Lobot, the worst figure. Is Lobot.
It's the worst.
Lobot? Oh yeah, by far.
Yeah, Charles has like a deep distaste of Lobot.
Oh, it's an easy cause character. If you want to do cosplay, it's easy. You just set some headphones and.
Yeah, you just have to wear a puffy shirt. We saw somebody dressed up at the ICC con. He was cosplaying Lobot.
Really?
And Charles was really jealous.
Yeah. Thanks, Jim. I just want to say thanks again for coming on and for doing everything you've done for the past 40 some odd years with the toys and the conventions and meeting everybody, and like everybody else, thanks. I never thought I would meet the person that designed the toys that I was playing with a long time ago. So thank you for everything that you've done for the community and all the Star Wars fans and the generations to come.
And still playing with.
Yeah, and not just Star Wars. We all had Spirograph and Play-Doh and all those other toys too. I mean, you probably touched a lot of the design for a lot of the stuff that we played with. So very, very cool.
None of you were in the Strawberry Shortcake.
And Strawberry Shortcake.
Nobody. You don't collect Strawberry Shortcake.
No.
My sister had them. My younger sister had them, so they were in the house.
Wow.
Yeah, and
I still remember the smell of them.
I'm sure you inspired a lot of designers too with the Spirograph.
Oh, maybe, I don't know. That's the most frustrating toy in the world. But we had, it's like how, because the only thing they've actually really sold is the basic set, where you make all this stuff. And we were trying to come up with how can you do it? We had Spirograph trying to make them 3D, and how do you, frustrating for a designer because it's like, what can you do with this stuff? Yeah, I had a great time. I have many fond memories of the stuff that I worked on, and it's really fun to see people still playing with them. People that work on, still have Strawberry Shortcake and they still smell. So
yeah.
Yep.
So but yeah, Star Wars is definitely. I tell you, I had the best time in the world because I got into it at a point where I could almost do anything I wanted to. I got to meet everybody, and now I get to meet the actors behind the characters. It's fun. I've got. I'm still on Facebook, and everybody's you do Facebook, but it's a way of keeping up with like the actors, all the background characters, the people that play Jabba the Hutt, and all the puppeteers and stuff are great. They're great fun to talk to. I'm trying to think who was. I don't think that any of them were ICC. They've been there because they couldn't come over this year, like Yak Face and
COVID and stuff.
The Squid Face and stuff. He was there a year before. He and I are great fun. We're great friends. Pam Rose, who was. I can't remember the character's name, but there's all these characters that I've met. They're great fun, and we're now familiar enough that it's like we pass information around, talk to one another online. I love that part of it. The big wigs, none of the big book guys.
Well, it sounds like it's a win. It sounds like it's a win-win. A couple times a year, you get to walk around like a rock star for the weekend, and you get to meet some nice people and make some good friendships, as well as some kooky fans and some nice fans, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Norse Force, the first Norse Force I went to, that's the only one. At Norse Force, if you ever get over there, they do an incredible job. They have a stage setup that has the doors, whatever. So when you make a presentation, the doors are closed, the blast doors.
Okay.
And they're on their remote control, so you stand behind it, and then they introduce you, and the thing opens up, and you step over the threshold onto the stage, and then the doors close. It's really cool. It was just like, this is great. So it's like,
John, can we Photoshop any doors when we edit this so that when we introduce Jim, the doors open? Maybe we can work on that. That's a good idea.
That was just it. It was that was the best presentation thing. It was like the blast doors open. It's the whole stage. It's this big stage and stuff. It was really cool, and I get to do all that stuff, which is really a lot of fun now. But early on, it was great to be involved with George and all that stuff. So
Well, again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for spending your Sunday night with us. You didn't have to, and you were very gracious to accept our invitation. So we do really appreciate that. Please, everyone, like this video, share this video with your friends, your fellow collectors. Please subscribe to our channel and just join us in commenting and thanking Jim Swearingen for joining us today. John, anything else you'd like to add as we wrap it up?
No, I just want to say that it really has been a real treat to have Jim Swearingen on with us tonight, and again, we appreciate you joining us. And I want to also remind viewers that if you want to leave some comments and some ideas for future guests or future spotlights, so we can see what you guys want down the road. As far as we're thinking about, I think we talked about it last week. We're thinking about doing like a collector's corner every week. So if you're interested and you have a nice collection, or even a small collection, it's fine. Just talk about collecting and what it means to you. And again, Jim, thanks so much for joining us. And everyone, be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Jim. Have a good night.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim. Good night, guys.
Good night.
Thanks, Jim.